Shari Rigby, thank you so much for being here. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So you have a new film, Divine Influencer, that you're working on. For people who might not know what the film's about, just give us a quick rundown of what this film is chronicling.
Absolutely. So Divine Influencer is about a young woman that goes from riches to rags overnight when her parents cut her off on her 29th birthday. And so she ends up homeless, without a job, loses everything, and ends up in a homeless shelter where she actually starts to meet people who start to teach her and share their stories with her so that she understands what true influence is all about. It's about serving God first and then serving others. And so she has a heart change, and it's just an incredible story about this young woman who I think the culture needs to know about, is that it's not about likes or shares, it's really about other people.
Yeah. Something that I think our culture has done a horrible job with social media is that we've turned mirrors all on ourselves, right? We're so self-centered, and that ends up with a whole slew of other problems, right? We end up being super self-conscious. Our self-esteem goes way down. There are so many problems and toxicity, I think, that's come with social media. So I think telling these stories in a way that resonates with people, talking about these issues in a way that really connects with people, which so often is entertainment, right?
Right.
Tell me about that and why you think it's important to tell this kind of story in this culture.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you're 100% right. We've turned this phone, this device now on ourselves all the time, whether it's a selfie or whether it's for eyes, mind, in a cell phone. I mean, it's really what rules our world day in and day out. And so often what it's doing is it's contributing to this crisis that we have in our culture. And so they just released a statement, actually the government, which was really surprising, that they said we are starting to see the highest rate of suicides among young women in the world that we've ever seen. And it's the first time that they're starting to really recognize the side effects that social media is having on our youth. And so we are really facing an identity crisis. We're facing a culture crisis. And so I think, why would we not, though? When God says, serve me first and serve others second, and here we have a world that's all about serving ourselves, why would it not become a crisis in our culture?
Yes.
And so I think this movie is really specifically to deal with that. The nice thing about Olivia Golden, though, is that she's a really likable character, and there's a lot of people that are out there in the world influencing that are not likable characters, and they're doing despicable things. But I think for her influence, really, we start to see it unravel and then ravel back up, but come back together again in a God-honoring way. And so I think that's what our culture needs as well, is it's unraveling. We're watching this crisis, and hopefully we'll start to see the shift change, and we'll start to see people realize, no, I'm completely lost. I need God first, and I need to be serving others, and it needs to be about other people and not myself.
Yeah. Something I think is so fascinating about your work is you're not just an actor, you're not just in the industry, but you're also using it as a ministry tool, as a way to reach people. Tell me a little bit about that. Was that a motivation you always had, or is that something that developed over time?
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a great question, because the Women in My World is so connected to me, and that's the organization, the Women in My World. And when I went to Hollywood back in 2009, I thought, okay, God's calling me to Hollywood. I'm going to be this massive superstar, and he's done so many things in my life. But what I realized really quickly as I was sitting in this little acting class is that as God was speaking to my heart, he said, no, you're actually here for my women. And so what I realized in that moment is that women and men, but they were losing themselves in Hollywood, in this world that is all reflective of ourselves, the images upon us. And so the Lord told me, bring women into your home, praise my name first, and then pray. And so I went from 2 to 25, now a couple hundred. And so our mission has shifted a little. We started out where we work with the discipling and shepherding and mentoring, where we really started talking about talents and gifts. We started talking about identity, who is God, the attributes of him, to now also not only do we do that, but we now became a nonprofit in 2021, and we now actually financially support. We give resources to women to actually place them on the job in entertainment and media. We actually believe that if we want to start changing the culture for faith, family, and freedom, we need to actually build the influencers from the bottom up. We need to pour into them God-honoring content, help them to cultivate that, and then to put them in places so that they can actually learn, be equipped. It's not a mandate. It's really about whether or not they're able to do the job, and then put them at the table so they can be making the decisions for what we are feeding our children and the world.
Yeah, so often I think people look at Hollywood, particularly conservatives or Christians, they look at the entertainment industry and they think it's a lost cause. Don't even waste your time going there. But there's also so much good that can be done. We've seen that with Jesus Revolution has been a hit success. The Chosen, PureFlix has released so many movies that have touched so many people's lives. So clearly there's a market there, right? And there are people who are desperate for this content. What do you see as the future of faith-based entertainment as it continues to expand and evolve?
Absolutely. Well, I think people of faith, and actually even people in the secular world, they want to be able to sit down and watch something with their family that has family values, that they don't have to worry about their child being, sitting in front of a commercial or a show and all of a sudden they're seeing something that they shouldn't be seeing. And I think people really they're hungry for family values again. They're hungry for substance, redemption, valued stories about men and women. And so I think we have an actual culture that's looking for that. And the beautiful thing is I believe that the Lord has positioned believers in a position so that over these last several years that we've seen this industry come up, we're sharpening our skills. We're really helping to develop the influencers that we're putting out there. We're really working with people in front of and, behind the cameras so that they're making great content and it's being put out there and the game is being elevated and the storytellers are. And so not only do we have these amazing, talented Christian leaders that are coming up and being elevated and doing great work, we also have a world right now that's really hungry for truth. They're hungry for redemption. They're hungry for values. And so I love that this is a moment in time where you see the good, you see all this bad, and now all of a sudden you're starting to see it kind of merge together. And I think that God's just going to continue to elevate, bring them together, and do great things with our faith world.
When you work on projects like Divine Influencer, what do you pull from your own life, maybe in your own faith journey and experience as you bring your character to life on the screen?
Yeah, absolutely. So funny you asked that because I've watched the movie. I'm in post. I've been editing and doing color and all these different things, and so I've watched it. I can't even tell you how many times. You're like, you can basically sleep and go, okay, I see this, I see this. I think for me, there were several things, and it's just being reminded that people's testimonies and stories do matter, and we are here to serve others. And number two, I think Olivia Golden asks some really tangible questions. She says, God, can you use me? And I think that's a question, whether you're a believer or a non-believer, that you're asking in some way when things happen, when the world falls apart, or sometimes when you just don't quite understand what he's doing. You're wondering, well, what are you doing? Why would you let this happen? Can you use me? And so I know that for me as well. I ask that question, what are you doing, God? Can you use me in this moment? And I should know that he can. But it was really a moment when I watched that again back, and I just thought, that is so relevant because no matter where we're at in our walk, we're always asking that question, can you use me?
I think so often in the midst of something, we feel like God's not there, or he can't hear me, or he's not using me. And then in retrospect, you look back and you can see God's faithfulness. And I think movies play a role in that, right? Because they echo back our own lives. So it's like, oh, I can see God was faithful through whatever I went through because it's similar to what that character went through. So I think these stories are important to highlight, and they communicate, like I said, in a way that other mediums don't.
And it was cool too because this movie was actually birthed from, I used to work with the Dream Center in Los Angeles. And so we saw this homeless shelter and we would see, people come in. They housed 750 people. That was a private organization to pour into people who were homeless, that were drug addicts, and to give them a second chance. And so I remember one thing that really touched me. And so when I watch the movie every time, there's this kind of like beautiful moment where you see this woman going, I need just something to wear because I need to know that people see me as valuable. They see me as, a good mom. They see me as an employee. And I think, man, that's such a powerful statement because that's what those people encounter every single day of their lives. And so when I look back, I think, look at what God was doing years ago, having me there, witnessing these things to now bringing it to life in a story.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Shari Rigby, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.